See you. So now that we're ready to talk about how I've broken life down into 4 categories. So first, I'm going to give you a piece of my personality, how I do things. Because I spent 20 years in the Marine Corps. The Marine Corps is a leadership by example organization. So for 20 years, all I've learned is how to actually lead and demonstrate by what I've actually done instead of teaching through theories and books and all this other stuff. So the truth is this. What you're going to learn this week is what has worked for me, what's worked for me very well. It may work for you. If you apply it, let's just say worst case scenario, if 50% of what worked for me works for you, you're going to be in a significant greater place than you probably intended to be. Here's the 4 categories I broke life down into when I realized what those categories were when I've mastered them. So the first category, actually Napoleon Hill wrote in the book Outwitting the Devil about this one a lot, which was basically wandering aimlessly, which is called drifting. So the first category in life is us drifting. What is drifting? Drifting is when we don't really find or define what our purpose in life really is. We're kind of still running around. It's where the majority of us actually starts with a job. And there's nothing wrong with a job. Don't get me wrong. People call jobs all kinds of things, right? Like the most popular term in the entrepreneur world we know is just over broke and all this other stuff, right? Just over beating yourself. It doesn't matter what it is. But why in my world I call having a job is that wandering phase. Because the job gives us something. It gives us security. In a sense, it's a false sense of security. So what we do is we really give up 8 hours a day of our time in the wandering space so that we could actually be like, yeah, okay, I don't have to do nothing. I want them to pay me for the 8 hours while I conversate around the water fountain for about 4 to 5. But they're going to pay me for them. They think they're getting away with just 2 hours of work a day. That's the average person. They're just still wandering. But here's the truth. Everything around us is energy, right? And we're going to talk more about this, not only just today, but tomorrow and the next day. We're going to dive deep real fast on a lot of these. So those 4 pieces are this, and I'm going to explain them, and then we're going to get started today. The 4 pieces is number 1, wandering. Number 2 is goal, right? The goals phase. Number 3 is purpose and meaning. And number 4 is legacy, right? Now, here's the deal. Wandering, as I said, in that job space, energetically, as I said, everything is energy. If we understand everything is energy, so the universe gives to us exactly what we give to it. So in life, we mirror and get what we want. So for example, if you became a person of value, let's say that value was $1 million or $1 billion. So you became a millionaire or a billionaire. All of your financial assets or the monies get taken away from you. You're still that millionaire. You're still that billionaire. You're that person of value. So with that understanding, if you in a job in the wandering phase are taking really from the energy of the universe, thinking you're getting away with it, you're working 2 hours because you're stealing 6, talking and doing whatever, and you're playing on Facebook doing all this other stuff, here's what you got to ask yourself energetically. Is the universe taking it back from you? Yeah, because you're not looking anywhere else. You're still wandering. You have that guaranteed check, but someone else who owns that business is now put a price on the value of your time. So when we really go deeper and we want to get out of, listen, I'm done with this, I'm made for something greater, that's when we start to wrestle and get into the goals phase. Because now we're starting to set goals. It's like, listen, this job isn't cutting it for me. And there's 2 ways that you could either remain in the wandering phase or get out. There's the people who knows like they're cut out for something greater, but they start to talk bad about the opportunity or the job or whatever it is they're in, and they're not seeing that they should be grateful to get up because it's giving them some sustenance, some money, paying the rent, driving the car, paying for gas. But anyways, they could be grateful for that opportunity to advance in the position. But if you give bad energy to it, if you talk bad about the opportunity, you're killing or ceasing all of your opportunities that's coming from the universe to you. So you either stay in that space, but if you're grateful for it, then you look for the opportunities and you get into goals phase. Now, goals phase is very interesting. So the goals phase is, it doesn't matter how big you get in the goals phase. Now, you can become a millionaire, you can become the president or CEO of a company or business, whatever it is. You can earn $1 billion, you can have all the homes, you can have 100 Bugattis if you want to. But if that's all you're going to do and just keep getting more and more and more, just goals, you're just setting a goal, hitting it, getting to it. At some point in your life, you're going to get to that piece that says, there's something more than this. And I remember from my wife and I, we did that. I bought the Bugatti. I got tired of the oil change price, so we bought a Ford with the oil change price, and it's great. But we got to that part, and a lot of it was we wanted to travel. We traveled a lot. In 2013, we traveled from 2013 to basically 2015, like 18 months straight, right? We did that. We cruised the whole time. This was pre-Baby Miracle, by the way, right? So pre-Baby Miracle was we just lived. We got through that goals phase. There was nothing else to do. There was stuff to do. We had other businesses, but we'll talk more about that this weekend. So that got me into why was I really put on this earth and what was I put on this earth to do? That's the purpose and meaning phase. That's phase 3. And then that's when I had officially written my book. Today's the day, right? Which has become the essence of everything I do. So this weekend, the whole purpose of this weekend, Game Weekend, is to take you through the 20 years of experience it took me to put in this book, the 14 steps and processes we go through as human beings, and the 15th chapter is how do you become successful and significant. And for me, becoming successful is not the boats, the cars, the this, the that. Successful is just the stage. Significance is where it's at, right? And for me, success is really defined by how many other people did you help have success? Now, when you start crossing that line, you start getting into being significant. And once you taste significance, success no longer cuts it. Like when that hit me for the first time, watching the first 3 friends we helped earn $1 million of their own, building their own business, that was a different level of happiness. I'm going to talk about that. That's called generativity, right? Or the transcendental piece. But you guys are going to hear about that tomorrow, actually, which is cool. So this weekend is broken down into those 4 categories. Today, we're taking you out of wandering, getting you into goal. Tomorrow, we're going to show you how to shape those goals, focus them into your purpose and meaning. Saturday takes you out of purpose and meaning, your life's work, into the home run on Sunday, where we're going to focus on your legacy. So the entire curriculum this week is specifically for that, for you. That's why I said this weekend is for you. Say me. Me. Right? This weekend is for me. But here's the deal. This weekend is also for me. Because here's this, how you do anything is how you do everything. So the learning platform is more for the teacher than it is the student. Because all this stuff that I'm teaching, even though I've done it, it helps to reinforce it into me. So write this down. Spaced repetition is the mother of all learning. All that simply means is the more you do something, the better you get at it. Now, that's a conscious or a subconscious thing for most of us. And that's why it's important today for us to talk about the Underdog Wealth Building Academy. Because what has kept each of us, whether your net worth is $1 million, 100 million or more, or you're working on your first million, you have a set or a function of behaviors that have you in your own academy of wealth that you've been building. Now, for most people, about 85% of it has been unconscious to them. What we're going to teach you energetically, spiritually, and scientifically here, starting today, is how to actually move into that space, how to do it on a constant, persistent, consistent basis, so it moves from the conscious into the subconscious, so you're doing it without even thinking about it. So we're going to talk about the wealth building techniques you weren't taught in school, right? So let's jump into it. And I'm going to share some stories and some the ways a lot of this stuff has affected me and how some of it might affect you. So we're going to touch first on the first 2 most important principles, which is self-management, which obviously they don't teach you this in school. And the most important is resource management, wealth management. So let's talk about self-management for a second. Self-management is, or the overshadowing piece that they teach us, not even in school, not even in college, but there's courses and programs to teach you time management, right? So here's a question, class. The answer is in the question. How do you manage time? Dean says can't. Sinise?
I don't know. I feel like that was a hard question.
Joe, how do you manage time?
We can't. We can only manage ourselves.
Okay, cool. Okay, love it. So the impossible. So think about what the world is doing. The world is marketing and advertising something that's impossible. And everybody's buying impossibility and say they don't have faith. See? So here's how you manage self. Self is the proponent around the only constant, which we'll talk about. We're going to break this down some more. We're going to break time down a little bit later on. And the only constant is change. Change is the only constant that revolves around time. Later, we're going to talk about time being a construct to measure certain things. But here's management. I'm going to give you management from my perspective. So I created a self-management simple program for me. Oh, by the way, I didn't even tell you guys. So what's my greatest gift? My greatest gift in the world is this: taking the complicated and making it simple, simplifying it. But I've learned that that was my skill. So here's where it is. If I see something this big, my brain compresses it and breaks it down to the simple molecule. If I see the simple molecule, my brain expands it out and learns every step in between. I realized it while I was in the military. I could really see what the enemy was going to do before the enemy did it. That also probably because I study behavior. So for some of you, if you want, what gives me the right, what earns me the right to stand up here and tell you about this is this. I do have, here's the nerd side of me. You guys want to hear the nerdy side of me? Here's the nerdy side of me. I have a PhD in human behavior, PhD in psychology, a doctorate in medicine, a master's in theology. I also have an MBA. I learned, you know what's crazy? When I got my MBA, I thought I was going to learn business. And I realized there's a professor who makes $75,000 a year trying to teach me how to make millions. He's never done it. He can't lead me by example. He's leading and reading a book on theories on how to actually be effective within a business that earns $1 million. Which, by the way, he could only teach me what he does because he's making $75,000 in a business. A college is a business. You guys know that, right? Okay, so by the way, we're going to tell you guys the difference between for-profit and non-profit business. We're going to blow your minds. Anyways, but we'll get there. So coming back to what helped me to extrapolate this whole self-management piece down into 4 categories. The first category is for me. Listen, you have to be selfish. Here's why. Because in order to be selfless, you must be selfish to come out and become selfless. Here's an example. You're out in the middle of the ocean. You can't swim. Naturally, your wife, sister, brother, girlfriend, somebody you like is drowning and going down. What does the average person naturally think to do? Save them. Now you're both dead. Good luck. But if you go and save yourself, depending on how far you are, you could come back with a floaty, a buoy, a good swimmer to bring them out. If they die, you can grieve them. The earth only lost one person. So you have to sell out in order to come back and help out. I'm going to tell you this because most of you guys, you see, you know, in my community with more African Americans like myself, I used to hear I'm a sellout. Like, you sound like the white guys. Like, great. You know what they don't do? They don't put me down as much as most of my own people put me down. That told me I had to step out of my own personal environment. You are not a hero in your own space. It's crazy. You're not a hero in your own space. So I started learning this example from my one and only natural biological sister. I was introducing her to a multi-million-dollar deal of a business to help her out. By the time I was born, my sister was already 26 years old. So I started the race 26 years late. Because of that, I was born an uncle twice over. You know, I already had 2 nieces. I'm saying, could you imagine though, my oldest niece looking like, oh, this dude's gonna be my uncle one day. It's like, his diaper stinks. Anyways. So my sister, when I give her the opportunity, this is what my sister told me. And I want you guys to really pay attention to this. Because your friends and family, the people who know you the most, they'll do this to you sometime. You'll feel bad, but you can't be mad at them. You have to look at it from her perspective. Bro, I was in the race 26 years before you. So when I offered the opportunity, these were her exact words. What can you tell me about business? I changed your diaper. Okay, sis, here's the deal. At the time, you got 3 jobs, complaining about them. I got none. And my wife and I travel just as much as we have sex, which is pretty often. And that's what you're asking for. But when you ask me, what can you tell me about business? I don't know a lot. Long story short, she was my sister. I was really wanting to help her. Sometimes you break your back for family and it's like, you can't. So here's what I did. We had this event. My wife and I was getting a $100,000 check for whatever. Woo! So we flew her out to the event, put her up to stage. She had a chance to talk in front of 35,000 people. She saw what my wife and I did and was like, bro, I didn't know. So she's like, all right, I'm going to get started. So she gets started. This was in a network marketing company, by the way. You know how it works if you understand network marketing. I sponsored her in the business. To build a solid business, you need 3 structures. I built 2 of those 3 for her. 103 people. She never put 1 on. What is the brother to do? Right? What's the brother to do? So here's what you have to understand. When you're looking at the self-management piece, I couldn't control my sister. I couldn't control how she thought. I couldn't control what she did. I learned that I could control me. So the best thing I need to do was track me. So category 1 of my self-management quadrant is called self. Right? Through my regular 24 hours of a day, the second quadrant is called morning routine. The third quadrant of my day is called work. And the fourth quadrant of my day is called family time. Now, those quadrants I'm offering to you, that's a gift. That alone was worth the ticket of being here this weekend. But here's what's cool. That quadrant has made me hundreds of millions of dollars. Do you want to know why? The number one thing about building wealth is energy management. Write that down. Now, why is that important? Who could tell me, by the way? Why is energy management the most important piece? Joe?
Because everything's energy.
Everything is freaking energy. Everything is energy. So if you manage it effectively and yourself around it, here's the portion of what I'm doing. So throughout my day, there's 4 quadrants for energy. When I sleep, I replenish. When I get up, I'm good to go. I take care of me. And then in the work time that I have for work, I'm like focused. I'm in that time following one course until I'm successful for the day, done, detach, new set of energy. Does that make sense? So let me give you the times around my quadrant. You can use the quadrants for yourself, but adjust your own time personally for you. Does that make sense? So meaning for me, quadrant 1, which is sleep. Sleep is the most important piece to this. Here's why. Actually, Joe, come on up here. I have Joe teach this piece a little bit. He don't even know what he's going to do or teach about, but Joe already noticed. Joe, what is the most important part of a car?
The gas.
The gas. Tell them why, Joe. Why is gas the most important part of the car?
Because without it, then the car doesn't go.
Car doesn't go. Now, what happens if people say, well, the steering wheel is the most important part. The engine is the most important part. And what's the difference with the engine not being the most important part?
It doesn't go anywhere without gas.
Okay. So for us as human beings, what is our gas?
Our energy.
Yeah, but more so the part that controls and dictates that energy for us.
I was going to say our mind state, But I'm starting
It's
to
the
think
brain.
sleep.
Come on, Joe. You embarrassing me. Did I need it to make the Tesla example? So Joe and I were talking. We talked about, so the most important part of the car is gas. We have to be the gas for our vehicle. It don't matter if you turn on the car, do whatever, it has no gas, it don't go nowhere. So if we're the gas, then that's the most important piece. We drive the car to wherever. Elon changed the game by creating Tesla. So with that being said, what's the most important part of the Tesla?
The battery.
The battery. Right? 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 So, new concepts. The car has to charge. What's the gas? The juice, the electricity. But what is the juice, the electricity for us? The brain. The brain, thanks, Joe. The brain needs adequate rest. Right? Let me give you the rest cycle for the brain real quick so you get it. When we're born, from 0 to about 3, the brain needs 14 hours of sleep. I know. From about 3 to 5, it needs 10 to 12. 5 to 7, about 8 hours. And 7 pretty much for the rest of your life, somewhere between 8 or 6, wherever you find your balance. 6 to 8 is kind of like in there, depending on the person. Now, I want to share something with you. I want you guys to really get this, because this is extremely powerful. If you get this, you're going to understand why our little 3-year-old can pretty much out-conversate half the adults around the world. From the time she was born, which is what my wife says, listen, when I'm a mom, I just want to be a mother. To spend and dedicate that time to her. Our little one has been sleeping through the night since she was 3 days old. And y'all know she doesn't really wake up till around whenever in the day. Well, she gets as much rest that her brain needs to develop in the time that it needs to develop. So she started with her 14 hours, 12 hours. So she's naturally finding her own space in there. But I want you to get this. Think of our brains as an energetic computer that needs a certain amount of programming every single day. And every day in the morning, if you wake up and stop that programming, disrupt the programming, how effective is that computer going to be? Great. So now think about this. A parent who has a child, and they're giving that child 5, maybe 6 hours of sleep a night. For the average amount of folks, so like 87% of the world, they have to get up, mom or dad, to go to a job. So they wake the child up, interrupt the sleep pattern so the brain isn't developing. Now this is over time, it's prolonged. So the brain doesn't develop well. If the brain doesn't develop well, the child gets frustrated easily, can't learn much, can't focus much. Then they might drive them to daycare or babysitting or whatever. The child may go back to sleep then, so they always have interrupted sleep. So from the core of this child, the processor is off, which makes it harder for them to pay attention and focus and learn in school. And people are always frustrated, like, why does the wealthy and their kids get wealthier? Because the wealthy has the time to actually let their kids sleep in. They got a nanny. When the kid wakes up, then the nanny goes to work. They don't wake up the kid to take them somewhere else so they can go to work. You guys getting this? Saying. So self-management, sleep is the most important. So when my brain has 8 hours of sleep, I wake up first thing in the morning and I'm ready to go. Well, the next part of that category for me, so from midnight, 12 a.m. to 8 a.m. is sleep. Because I got to take care of me. Now, once I wake up until noon, I'm still being selfish. I'm working out. I'm taking care of me. Right? A little bit of self-love. That's a real thing. Hey, you know what I'm saying? Right? But I have to take care of me. If I worked out, now, since everything is energy, I'm charging my energy station. Because that's what working out does. It creates more energy for you. So when I actually go into category 3, which is work, I am clear, I'm effective, and I can focus for 8 hours. Well, I work 7 hours a day from noon to 7 p.m. In my 7 hours, I can do more than 90% of the world does with a day and a half.